guys, it's Jennifer from the Shooter's Mindset, and we are live with episode 439. We've got our co-hosts of the week. Corey, how's it going?
Pretty good, Jen. I shot two matches and won two matches this weekend.
You won? Boy, you're batting 1,000.
100%, actually. Got her. Gotcha.
Got me. Greg, how's it going with you?
It's going good. I don't think I shot any matches this weekend. I took my gun all the way apart. There's pieces in all directions from where I'm sitting now.
Does that count? If you take your gun apart, that counts like a match?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't think so.
I'm not buying that one. All right, and our guest of the hour this week is Steve Irvan from Guardian Long Range. How's it going, Steve?
Going pretty good. Just came back off a little bit of a road trip, and nice to be back home here for a few days.
That's fun. So how many matches did you win this weekend?
I did not win any, but I was at Mammoth for a few days helping Chris set up and proof some stages and some stuff like that, and then watched a lot of competitors and RO'd a few stages. And then I did not do well down in Texas a couple of weekends ago. So I can blame it on leaving early, but I probably needed to leave early anyway. So
Mammoth looked interesting, a hot mammoth.
It was a hot mammoth this year, but I think the new location was it went over very well, and just general base and range operations were really, really smooth with that Fort Chaffee staff and everybody. So
looks pretty cool, pretty interesting. Well, so everybody really wants to hear from you tonight. So tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got into shooting and into, our sport of long range.
Yeah. So I was born, and then I went on from there. No, so I'm from Kentucky, out here in Western Kentucky. Did the Marine Corps thing for a little while, and then as I was getting my civilian career going, out in the DC area, kind of needed a hobby. And so I ended up getting in with the Quantico Shooting Club and kind of got my start precision bolt gun rifle stuff there. The Mason-Dixon PRS Club, or however it's branded these days, they did a great job of, back then they had a pro-am match where a month and a half ahead of time, you'd kind of email and they'd match you up with somebody to shoot your first match and stuff like that. Now they do a great beginners only match, but it's kind of where I got started with that. A couple of years into that, I was going to open the range there at Quantico one morning, and it was, had to get there a little bit earlier to check in with the range control and yada, yada, yada. And there was a guy parked there at the clubhouse kind of early, and I said, are you here to shoot long range today? And he said, yeah, I am. And I said, okay, well, I need just a little bit more time. You're welcome to come with me down, and da 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 da. And then we both realized he was not shooting long range with me, and also realized when he was asking about if I'd shot Guardian matches before, and I said no, but I've heard really, really good things about them. And come to find out, that was Gary, and that was the start of how I met Gary.
I feel like everyone needs a How I Met Gary story.
Everybody needs, yeah. So
we can make a TV series about it, How I Met Gary, and like just every episode is like somebody else meeting Gary.
That'd be funny. Could get really interesting. So you met Gary. How did you go from that to volunteering with Guardian? Did you start shooting it?
Yeah. So from there, it just kind of, just the general vibes of the mission and what they were doing. I'd shoot some one day and maybe some 2 days, but this is 2017 timeframe. You know, the number of matches that were out there, I felt like it was a little bit harder to kind of, it was, in my opinion, you know, from my vantage point, it was really just starting to kind of take off into what we have now with everything. So I wasn't necessarily interested in trying to compete in a series. I would definitely shoot, you know, some matches here and there. I shot some high power across the course type stuff and things like that. But the Guardian in general, just kind of, I was like, yeah, that's something I can get behind. And so from then on, I, you know, tried to catch at least one match a year, or RO a match for Guardian wise. So
I love the concept of Guardian. Can you explain for anybody that doesn't know, some of our viewers are not long range and some that are long range maybe haven't heard about it. So can you kind of give an overview of like what exactly is Guardian, how it got its start, the mission, and then kind of like what the matches are like?
yeah. So Gary's testimony is super powerful. And for those of you that have heard it before, you know, it makes a bunch of grown men cry on Sunday mornings. So Gary was not adopted till he was 16. And he, you know, went on with his life and stuff. And as he was at the ranges, he was starting to get into precision rifle, and he was just kind of looking at the environment saying, what if we were to have matches that benefited child and foster care programs? And so in talking with him, he had no idea that it would grow into the organization that it is now, coming into our 10th year. But that's always the root of the mission. And it, you know, it's more than a match, it's a mission. The match format in general is an individual 1-day match on Saturday. And then one thing that's unique, especially for beginner shooters, is on day 2, whoever finished first on day 1 is paired up on a team with whoever finished last, and then we zipper the field. So it gets a nice, what it does for people like me is force me out of my comfort zone and out of my own little bubble and my introvertedness. And, you know, it's that's probably one of my favorite things, was to get matched up with maybe a newer shooter. I remember one year at Frontline, the guy I had gotten matched up with the evening before, Saturday evening, at the awards and all that, he proposed to his now wife. So needless to say, he shot a lot better on Sunday with him sitting, you know, carrying that ring around in his pocket all day Saturday. He was a pretty good shooter, but he didn't quite do so well on Saturday. But that's the big thing with the Guardian, is that it really doesn't matter. It's the courses of fire can still be challenging, and, you know, yes, your good shooters are competing against each other. Everybody wants to kind of see where they are, but it's really a lot more about the community and the fellowship of that weekend than it is, you know, the competition itself. Our prize tables have always been either silent auction or raffle and things like that, and that helps kind of take some of that pressure off when you have bad stages and you go, oh, I just lost the match, and you kind of go, it doesn't matter, it's for the kids, you know. So
I love that concept of the first place, last place teaming up, you know, going down, because I just think that's really neat and a good opportunity to get beginners in to the sport that maybe want to try it out, and having that help on the second day, I think is great.
well, and it really does kind of force you outside of your comfort zone, again, for people like me, that this whole podcast thing, the whole, like, Gary's incredible at it, right? That was one of the first things I said to Gary when he had proposed me kind of taking in this new role, was like, I'm not active on social media. This is a little bit outside my comfort zone. And so that's the thing with the Guardian. And it's not to force people to be uncomfortable, but there is something to it, to get some of that time with somebody else from who knows what part of the country, who knows what their background is. And you're really kind of building in the community with stuff like that.
So you kind of mentioned your new role. How did you end up taking over as president of Guardian?
Well, in my civilian career, whatever, was kind of reaching a point to where I was pretty successful with it, and I'd ran a lot of good projects. I was a project manager and ran teams that designed and built cellular networks.
Okay.
And in general, I got to do some very, very unique projects, but I was just kind of, after a while, I was kind of like, I'm looking for something new. And I wasn't sure exactly what that new was going to be. When I moved back to Kentucky, I started feeling a little bit more calling to kind of get more involved with some stuff, and I had some conversations about teaching at the community college. I knew I was going to be stable enough to kind of volunteer a little bit more and not be traveling work-wise as much. So
Okay.
I just reached out and said, hey, I'm going to have a little bit more availability. I can, help out a little bit more with some matches. And then that quickly turned into Gary saying, oh, how much availability you got? Because I got, Gary had been looking to try to transition out. He's still going to 100% be at every match. He's still involved. It's just, you do something for that long, and, personally, his career, he's, everybody's busy. I feel like I'm the only person that's not busy that I talk to, and it's a weird dynamic now. I will have to be, want to be super respectful of everybody's time as I'm meeting new industry partners and things like that, and starting to build some of those relationships that have always supported the Guardian. So that's kind of where how I ended up where I was. I said, Gary, I don't know anybody in the industry. I'm not really a public figure. And he's like, don't worry, in true Gary fashion, he's like, don't worry about it. You'll figure it out. And
that is exactly the words that Gary would use.
Well, I thought about it for a couple of days. And, when Gary had his first Guardian match, he had never been to a precision rifle competition, and he had never hosted a precision rifle competition. But there is something to it that if you're aligned with the mission, and the mission of the Guardian is as powerful as it is, as long as I don't completely burn down the kitchen, like some things are going to take care of themselves. And I don't think that there's another organization that somebody like me could kind of step into this role. And here, after a few months, I'm starting to kind of maybe get a feel for it, but got to get through our first match here in May, and then we can take a pulse check on how it's going. But
where is the first match for people wanting to sign up?
It's going to be in Colville, Washington.
Okay.
That is May 17th through the 19th.
Cool.
Yeah. So
good date after Mother's Day. Good job.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll be in Colville, Washington. And then we're going to go to the Ben Franklin Range in Templeton, Pennsylvania, in July, mid-July.
Okay.
We'll be back at Michigan at the Marksmanship Training Center in September, and then Colorado at Cameo again in October. And then
that'll be nice.
In November, we will be having the Guardian team match down in Georgia again at Arena.
Okay. You planning an extended trip to Cameo? Maybe stop and get some Colorado elk on the way back?
I don't know if I'll get any Colorado elk. The Colorado, or historically for the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I've tried to make at least one shooting trip out west.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually like kind of bracket a couple of weekends, like go shoot the Steel Safari one weekend, migrate to another match somewhere, and
right,
kind of shoot it. Because shooting out west is very different, and I think it's important to kind of get a little bit of a feel for all the different environments. So when the Guardians started going to Cameo a few years ago, that was an easy, like, okay, what's next after that weekend? And my best friend lives in Fort Collins with her husband, so it's pretty cool to get to run up there and spend a few days with them. in between.
Nice.
So
Yeah, make a trip of it.
yep, that's my summer vacation every year for the past few years, is kind of being a little bit of a nomad, rambling around, shooting some competitions.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life goals there.
It's very different this year, because it used to just be like, oh, it's some guy that's not a very good shooter in the wind from Kentucky, to now it's like, have you heard about the Guardian Long Range? And so
Door to door salesman.
no, but it's good. I mean, it's, it's one of those things that's easy to sell, as more people find out about it and things like that. So
Do you hate children or do you want to support our mission?
Not like
Oof.
guilting people into it, right?
Exactly. So, Steve, what kind of testimonies do you have? Have you adopted? Are you adopted? Kind of what have you done in your community to support kids?
Yeah, so I was not adopted. And really the Guardian and being involved with the Guardian was kind of the first, you know, in my early 30s, I'm head down career, working on my own life with things and things like that. But then that Guardian stuff, even if it was just a weekend a year, just kind of puts that little in the back of your head, right? Um, that's one thing that's unique about the Guardian. In the last year, down in Georgia, I was sitting with Heidi, the president or the director of the Georgia beneficiary that we had selected. And so I was sitting with her during the prize table and some things like that, and kind of explaining like what was going on. That was the first time she'd ever been to a shooting competition. And she said, I don't know that I've ever been in a room with this many men, much less this many men that are here for a cause like this, right? And that is something that's pretty unique about, not unique, but I was in court yesterday, and we'll get to that. But uh, when I'm in family court, it's 20 women that are social workers or the attorneys and things like that, right? So Guardian to me was something that was putting that in the back of my head, that there's major issues out there. And I think when I moved back to Kentucky, I was kind of in an insulated bubble there in DC, right? And you move back into a more rural area and you're at the grocery store and you're just like, yeah, there's some struggles out there in the community. So one thing that I'm a big proponent of is a CASA, which is a court appointed special advocate. So it's a volunteer thing. You get about 30 hours worth of training on how to write court reports, tons of training on kids and kids that have experienced trauma and stuff like that. But what a court appointed special advocate does is basically, as a child or children are going through difficult, challenging times, they may be rotating in and out of different temporary foster families, rotating in and out of different caseworkers and things like that. But the idea of a CASA in more difficult court cases and stuff like that is you are the one person that kind of stays with that child throughout their whole process until they can kind of find their forever home. A big part of that's also, you're not going to take an 8-year-old and put them on the stand to testify in court, right? So by building that relationship and trying to represent the best interests of that child, I can then testify in court and work with all of the parties involved. So that's for a single guy that lives in a fishing hideaway in Kentucky, me taking in and fostering isn't, that's not feasible. But something like a CASA role is very doable. A few hours a month. I have to go to court maybe once every 3 months, so the time commitment isn't as much. But it's an important role for sure.
That's awesome.
And it has to make a huge impact on the lives of these kids going through these troubling times, to just have the same friendly face there, kind of build that relationship so that they have somebody that they know they can count on versus a new stranger every day.
Yeah. And especially as a male figure, it's definitely different. I'll be visiting the elementary school tomorrow to have lunch, and I feel like a giant when I'm at an elementary school. Like,
You are when you're there.
Yeah.
That's
So we're
great.
about at the midpoint of the show. Remember, if you're watching us live on Facebook, ask any questions you may have in the comments section of the video, and we'll ask it live on air. Other ways to catch us, you can always check back on the Shooter's Mindset Facebook page. The videos stay up here forever, and we usually upload to all of the podcast apps the night after the show. Then finally, everything eventually ends up on the Shooter's Mindset YouTube page, so that's a great place to look up past episodes.
So, how would you grow the Guardian as an organization? Like, what's the plan moving forward? Is it more matches? Is it more advocacy? Is it like a social media role?
I think that again, because I haven't really kept a super pulse on the sport um,
Mhm.
until this new role, there are so many matches out there now, and that is an
Yeah,
awesome. I don't even want to call it a problem, but
it's not.
as a
It's great.
shooter, it is awesome. Um, as somebody who's historically, an organization whose primary source of revenue came from match signups and raffle donations and stuff like that, there's some challenges there. So
Sure. Yeah.
over the next couple of years, what we would like to see is the Guardian kind of being a little bit of that nonprofit arm for the whole precision rifle community. And I think that the industry and the sport is kind of primed for that, right? And there are definitely benefit matches for Special Forces Foundation and different things like that, right? But we're gonna
Right.
maintain our focus on child abuse, neglect, and foster programs. Um, and we're also going to maintain our focus on precision rifle. Um, there's definitely, and everybody's got super great ideas. But as you start to just kind of try to scale, we want to make sure we maintain our focus and not get into a lot of the different avenues that other nonprofits um, are very successful at, with golf tournaments and things like that, right? But I think that there's a space for us in precision rifle. Um, we will always still have matches. I think that the match
Okay.
load will probably remain around that 4 or 5 matches a year. Just
Hmm.
because they're, as a shooter, if you're looking at the calendar and you know, and I completely get it. People have limited
Fills up
vacation
fast.
time. What's that?
I said it fills up fast.
Yeah, limited calendar space and things like that. So I think that's where we will go. Again, our matches they feel different. The course of fires and some of that type of stuff. We'll always continue to try to do unique things, but after you've been shooting for a few years, a match is a match, and it's great, and you do well at some matches and you don't do well at others and stuff like that. But I think that those that have came out and experienced Guardian matches, you do truly just feel a little bit different leaving it. So the growth of the Guardian, I think, will migrate more into being a nonprofit arm for the whole industry. We've got some industry sponsors that um, have always historically supported us, but in the future,
Right.
they're looking at things like, could the Guardian potentially identify a good beneficiary locally to them? Not a match, but I've got, I've got some money that I want to put to a good cause, vetting a beneficiary. And I had been warned of this, and that's my favorite thing to do so far in the new role, is meeting with beneficiaries that are
Oh
actively
yeah.
working in foster, but there's a little
Yes.
bit of a hump you have to get them over. Like, wait a second, you guys shoot guns? you know, Most of our beneficiaries and a lot of people that work in that space aren't
Hmm.
gun people. And I think that there's a great opportunity for the Guardian to bridge that gap and say, this is what responsible gun ownership looks like. This is what a good, healthy sport looks like, and connecting those dots. But the vetting of beneficiaries and the guardian kind of being the place that connects those dots. Local gun clubs, there's some memorial matches that are probably going to be on the calendar. They're not going to be guardian matches, but the guardian will help serve a role to finding a good home for that and helping promote some of those matches as well. So
Yeah. I remember a friend, Jeremy Moore, who runs Vortex 3 Gun, talked about one time, working with Mission 22 and how his one stipulation was, if you open your books and let me look at them, I'll do whatever you need.
Yeah.
And they said yes. And that kind of vetting, like from someone that knows what they're looking at, is incredibly important right now. And what you were saying about matches, benefit matches in general do really feel different. Like they have a little bit of an everyone wins. So like day one it doesn't matter if you're like 50th place and you were expecting first. Like it's like, yeah, it's still for a good cause, right? And that it kind of gets into the shooters' minds and everyone seems to work together more. It's not a huge effect, but you can always tell it's there at a benefit match.
I've definitely still came off a guardian stage frustrated before when I've made
Of
some
course.
mistake. And that's usually because though I'm talking with new shooters or having a great time with my squad. And then they're like, Steve, you're up. And it's like, oh, wait a second. Where are these targets at? Sure.
Which way does the magazine go in the gun?
Yeah. But
Bullets forward, Jen.
Yeah, I know. I was talking, I forgot.
Which way is forward?
the difference is with the guardian match, once you blow that stage, it's just, and you might be frustrated coming off of it. Like, yeah, I probably should have prepped a little bit more for that stage, but it doesn't last long because you're going back to the squad and you're high-fiving and things like that. So, yeah, but the feel for it for those that haven't experienced it's definitely different. Fridays now we're going to be introducing a lot more beneficiary type stuff.
Okay.
Historically the beneficiaries and beneficiary representatives have kind of been around for that weekend, and then Saturday night at the awards, and they'll still do that where they kind of speak to their mission with all of the shooters there. We get it. Not all shooters can come in and be there from Friday at noon till whenever, right? Some people are traveling and might not get in till later. But we're going to be incorporating a little bit more beneficiary time. We've got some shooters that have some pretty powerful testimonies of they've done different things. So that Friday afternoon, we're going to make sure we carve out some space for that too. And it might be something like we're going to teach there'll be a tripod class at 2:00. And then at 2:50, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and a detective from wherever locally will talk a little bit about what they're seeing child trafficking wise, right, for 10 minutes. And all right, barrels are cool. Now let's go back to doing something else, right? And then 45 minutes later, hey, let's take a 5-minute break and question and answer session with somebody that maybe does temporary fostering and things like that. And what do they have to do continuing education credit wise, how much time commitment is it, and things like that. So
do y'all know, and I know every match may do the funding may go to where you don't know this number, but do y'all know or have a ballpark of how many children Guardian has affected and helped?
Over the course of 10 years and as many, 4 or 5 matches a year, we've had as many as 8 matches a year. I don't know. Blame it on the new role, but those are the type of things. I would say that those that have been involved and have seen the Guardian in action know that it's definitely made an impact. And we've definitely had matches where the kids that were helped in the program that they would come out and they would say, hey, because of your donation last year, this is what I was able to do. And if you think back 10 years ago, like how old are some of those kids now that we were able to help?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wondered. I know you can't really put a number on it, but I know it's been a lot, and that I was trying to figure out how to even quantify that to anybody that doesn't know and hasn't followed Guardian, through the years to see what all has been done. Because I know there's been a lot of good done.
Yeah. And yeah.
And kind of the way each match works, at least the ones I've been at, is you decide, hey, we're going to have this match in Georgia, and then we choose who's going to be the beneficiary of it. So somebody that's helping kids close to where the match is.
Right.
And then generally at the end of the match, they're presented with a check. I know, how big was the check last year in Georgia? $25,000
I don't think it was quite, but
or
usually
20.
15. Yeah.
I think it was 20. Um,
But a substantial number.
yeah, it's a big paycheck that goes to the one particular organization that's helping out the kids.
Yeah. That's why I said I know it might be hard to put a number, because I know sometimes it goes to an organization that's going to help multiple kids. It's not like, the beneficiary is one person. It's, I think,
No.
going and getting multiplied, through another charity also.
Yeah. And that's where the relationship with our beneficiaries is so important. I remember the Colorado match, and I don't want to, but the first year we went to Colorado, Western Slope was the beneficiary. And again, that Saturday evening after everybody's shooting, Scott kind of did the rundown of, this is what we do, this is our mission focus. But it wasn't until the next year when Gary and Scott were talking up in front of everyone, said, tell us about what you did with the funding that we provided last year. And Scott's like, yeah, we purchased 300 and something sexual forensics kits. And it's like, oh, like that, you just felt like the whole thing come down. And unfortunately, that's the space that we're trying to support with some of our beneficiaries. So yeah.
It's definitely a problem out there. I mean, I'm a nurse and I've seen firsthand all kinds of things that should not be happening or ever have to be seen by anyone.
Yeah.
So
So the money that the Guardian can raise through this incredible sport, it's going to truly make some big impacts in kids' lives.
So if somebody wants to follow Guardian and kind of see how they can help and how they can get involved and all of that, but they're not on social media, what other avenues do you have? Or is there a website? Can they reach out?
Yeah. So and I completely get it. I'm not very active on social media. I made my first update to Guardian Long Range through my phone. I had been doing it through the computer, but Greg sent me a message and I was out. So it's like, all right, you designed and built a whole bunch of cell phone networks. I guess it's time to start learning how to use them. But on our website, so if you're not active on on social, completely get it. But you can check out our website, Guardian Long Range. Pretty straightforward. But scroll down to the bottom and there's a place there to subscribe. And so you could subscribe. That way you can make sure you're getting the information and newsletters and updates and some things like that.
But then also, if you are active on the social medias, you guys do have and I don't know, I'm assuming somewhere there's somebody that's making a lot of posts. That's their job to handle the Guardian Facebook. And
yeah, no, he's fantastic and been supporting us, I think, for a couple of years. So yes, we're on Instagram, Facebook, that type of stuff.
And it's just at Guardian Long Range on both of those, right?
I believe so, yes.
I think so too. So let's say somebody wants to help Guardian's mission but can't make it to a match. How is there anything else they can do?
There's a donate button on our website, and I think the big thing with that is, especially as we talked about how trickier it is to try to manage your match schedule for the year. If you donate and you can check out and see like, oh, this match is in Pennsylvania, that's a few hours for me. Maybe I want to support that local beneficiary or whatever it is. And make a note saying, hey, I want this to go towards the Colorado match and things like that. Also, just tapping into the community as a whole. An example, we had a shooter that worked for an electric company, and he knew that that electric company was, about to start their yearly grant application. And the first thing that popped into his mind was, I know a great beneficiary, because he had been to Guardian matches and he really believed in that beneficiary. So he helped that beneficiary know that this is what you need to do to apply. I'm going to walk your application right to the desk. So there's lots of ways to get involved. If you can't actually attend the match, we definitely want to see everybody. That's part of the weekend and that community and that fellowship. But there's lots of ways to get involved without it. And if you've got any questions, you can reach out to me, either info@Guardian Long Range or steve@guardianlongrange.org. With any of your testimonies, ideas, things like that, or hey, I don't even necessarily know how to start. Can you tell me more about? Is there a volunteer? Maybe one weekend a year there's a child retreat camp, and maybe there's an opportunity for you to go volunteer at that or something like that, and we can kind of be that spot to help you find a place to make an impact.
Yeah. What do you see as your plan for the next 5 years? Like where do you see Guardian going? What do you see it achieving? Like what's the big vision for it?
I think that the match environment will always be there in that community. And when you're looking at your schedule and you say, okay, I want to go to one Guardian match a year, and I'm going to bring my wife or my husband and my kids, and we're going to make it more of a family weekend.
Okay.
There's that opportunity from the match perspective, but also kind of that organization that pops in your head going, I'm a precision rifle shooter, I want to make a donation towards something, and how can I give financially like that. I think 5 years from now, that the organization, I want all precision rifle shooters to know that we exist and what our mission is, right? When I was in Texas at a match a couple of weeks ago, it was like, Guardian, yeah, I've heard of it. Is that a veteran thing, or are you guys in the Southeast, and some stuff like that? And it's easy if you know what the Guardian is to say, yeah, of course, everybody. But with the amount of new shooters that this sport gets every year, the more awareness of what the Guardian is, what the mission is, things like that. I think 5 years from now, it's going to be synonymous with a lot of the other industry partners, scopes, rifles, things like that everybody knows about. I'd also like for them to be like, yeah, and the Guardian is that nonprofit place that like helps kids, and yeah.
Okay.
So growing and getting bigger and bigger.
Growing and getting bigger and bigger. We'll see. I mean, I think that the industry is primed to support it, right? I think that there's a lot of companies that may have started making accessories or whatever it was 10 years ago, and now they've kind of reached that maturity point, right, to where they're healthy and mature companies that are looking at going, okay, what can we do to give back? And there are lots of fantastic companies that were already established that have supported us year over year, and can't thank them enough.
If somebody is thinking about shooting the match and maybe they're not not into the sport of long range yet, but they have a rifle, they hunt, whatever. What are the bare necessities that they would need if they were like, yeah, I think I want to go and try one of these matches?
I think the bare necessity is some safety, which we can we can make sure that the stages are safe and that you're in a squad with people to help you. But really, a rifle and ammo, if you don't have dope, we'll help you get it on Friday. I mean, it really is a thing, and that's for all matches, whether, you know, even just a non-Guardian match. I think most of the listeners here and most people involved in the sport know that you can show up with bare bones, and people in your squad are generally going to be helpful. Guardian wise, I think we can just help try to take it to the next level with that as well.
So as long as they have a rifle and some fundamentals of safety, they probably could come and borrow anything else and
Definitely.
get started. I know a lot of times people are like, well, I don't know what, what I need. Well, I know when I started in this, I had no clue what I needed.
And I think the difference
Yeah, I
is
was
with
there too.
Guardian match. I think some of the differences with a Guardian match too versus like some of the other series matches is some of the shooters at that series match, they're serious, and they should be, right? Because it is a more competitive environment. They're putting a ton of work and a ton of training into shooting that qualifier, stuff like that. So and I know that a lot of those great shooters, they're super receptive to people coming up to them and stuff too, but it's a different mindset of, I'm 4 shooters out. I'm really trying to get focused, get my mind right on things, watching wind, prepping to make sure I can execute this stage successfully. At a Guardian match, if you come up to somebody and they're the next shooter on deck and you've got a question, they're probably going to completely forget about the stage and talk to you, and then scramble around like me when it's my time to shoot, and not really worry about it that much. So I think, you know, the environment for that as a new shooter, just know that if you show up at a Guardian match and you've got a question, it doesn't matter. That more experienced shooter isn't going to care as much about the stage as they are about helping you. And they're, again, it's just a different. If I was at a hot qualifier and there's a different stage focus to being approached. So, but it's been my experience that no matter what type of match it is, it's very receptive to new shooters.
I agree. Do we have any live questions on the Facebook video?
Joel did want to know about Greg's hat earlier.
I forgot to put on a hat. It's in the other room. I realized like right after we went live, I was like, oh, I don't have a big Vortex logo on my forehead. That's sad.
That's sad. That's funny.
Yeah.
Get to see people how you're used to seeing them. I passed in somebody I work with. Passed on the running trip. I was running. He was biking, and I saw him today. And I was like, "Do you ride bikes?" He's like, "Yeah." Was that you running? I was like, we both are like, is that him? Like, you look different when you're out of your element. Greg's out of his element with no hat on.
Yeah.
All right. So are we good on lives?
Good on lives, I think.
All right. I think we can wind it down to shout outs. We will start with Greg.
All right. Well, we'll shout out Hunter's HD Gold up here, helping my blind butt see everything all the time. Then you can kind of see over here, there's PDC custom chassis over there, and the rest of the guns over there, and then the cans and pieces over here. So yeah, shout out to them too.
I got me some HD gold, but the active blues coming, so I can run in them.
Ooh, you're gonna
I
like
actually
those.
got a certificate from Mammoth from the RO table for Hunter's HD Gold. So thanks for them and everybody that supported Mammoth.
Nice.
They're awesome.
Nice.
You're gonna love it.
Yeah,
It's
I'm looking
literally
forward
like
to
an HDR filter for your eyes. It's so cool.
It is pretty cool. Corey, what you got?
I got Aaron Hayes at Texas 3 Gun for doing video stage previews. They had a big festival out at the range, and they're doing a lot of last minute setup. So I know he's been working hard, and we're going to shoot that match this weekend. So look forward to seeing him.
Good times. Good times. All right, Steve, what you got for shout outs?
I'll shout out to all of the caseworkers and social workers that are out there doing some pretty difficult work. The nurses that have to see that type of stuff day to day. Um, Everybody that's historically been involved with Guardian. Now that I'm in the drive and looking at old documents and stuff like that, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot. But there's so many people that were a big part of this. Obviously Gary, but there's a lot of people that I haven't had a chance to reach out to yet. I've got to get in contact with everybody and just kind of thank them for building the foundation that we've got here at Guardian. And then yeah, all the foster parents, that's a big commitment. And so really appreciate everybody doing that.
That's a tough job.
Yeah.
To take, not just to take on a child, but to take on a child that has issues. My sister fostered 2 kids and ended up adopting them. And it was not an easy journey, for
Yeah.
sure.
Those kids that you're taking in, it's a heavy lift. They've experienced some trauma that they shouldn't have had to experience. So those are my shout outs. And I really appreciate you all having me on. Like I said, this is definitely outside my comfort zone, but maybe next year I'll be a little bit smoother. I don't think I'll ever reach Gary level. He's just got that energy and that smile. But yeah, I appreciate it. And
I don't think any of us will ever hit the Gary level, but you did great. Just kind of help spreading the word of
Mhm.
Guardian to all of our viewers and listeners. So you didn't do bad. You did a great job, and we thank you for what you're doing to
Yeah,
help with Guardian.
definitely. Yeah.
well, anybody that's listening, feel free to reach out, hit us up, and look forward to seeing where we can go in the future, and just an incredible sport, and how can we better help bridge that gap between the sport and our mission.
Awesome. And for my shout outs, I just want to shout out first off Gary for starting this and everything that he's built with it, and then to you for taking it over. I know it's a labor of love. I know it's a lot of fun, but I do know it's also a lot of work. So we appreciate you doing this and helping, raise these funds to help all of these children. It's really a good thing. I love seeing our sport supporting a good cause. So I think it's great. So, and everybody needs to go check out Guardian Long Range. Google them, look them up on Facebook, Instagram, look at the website and see how you can support them, either coming to a match or, just supporting them in other ways that they have opportunities out there. So check them out. And that will be a wrap for episode 439. And I hope everybody has a great night.
Thanks, everybody.